Welcome to episode 132 of the Sports Geek Podcast. On this week's episode, I chat sponsorship and sports business with JW Cannon.
Welcome to the Sports Geek Podcast, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals.
And now, here's your host, who is a handy point guard who must be defended for three-point shots, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. It's good to be back behind the mic for 2017. Welcome to the Sports Geek Podcast. You're either listening to this via iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or my favourite Pocket Cast app. My name is Sean Callanan, and you're listening to the Sports Geek Podcast. You might know that by now, but if you're a new listener, maybe drawn in via the Sports Geek replay that I did over the Christmas New Year period. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming on board. What you're going to get out of this podcast is a mix of sports, technology, marketing, digital, social media, really all the stuff that we do at Sports Geek in helping teams better understand their fan base from a digital point of view and better monetize it via commercial and sponsorship and working with partners around campaigns. So good to get back into the podcasting, back on the podcasting bike for 2017, to get back on the wagon. Took a little bit of a break and sort of just been recapping the numbers and putting some targets down for the year ahead. Last year, 2016, actually dropped the ball, or I sort of dialed it back a little bit with busyness, with a lot of work from a client perspective, both from a sports geek and Chunky Media, working with businesses outside of sports. That's what Chunky Media does. So we did 28 episodes last year, which has actually been our lowest in the 4 years that we've been podcasting. So 28 last year, 33 the year before. 2014 was a banner year, 43 episodes. And then last year, in the first year, was 30 episodes. So I'm going to set the bar again, reset. The target for 2017 is 40. That's 10 per quarter. So I'm going to schedule some breaks, especially around travel. This year I'll be going to South by Southwest, and I know there'll be a fair few of you who listen will be there. So I'm looking forward to having a meetup, probably a sports biz Slack meetup for all the people that are in the sports business Slack. So yeah, that's the goal. 40 episodes in 2017, and also I'm going to try. And this is again, I put my hand on my heart, saying I'm going to try. And I'll try to get the team to rally around that and hold me accountable to that. But also to be starting to ship the podcast on a regular date. I'm still at the moment figuring out what that date is, but with the team in place, with James doing the editing, Meg managing things from a content point of view, and Jolie coming on board just recently around content, I hope that's going to be far more achievable. So expect it to be a little bit more regular, not as ad hoc as it has been in the past. Now, I want to get stuck into the interview and the guest for today. Today's guest is JW Cannon. I've known JW for many years, met him via the Twitter. He runs SB Chat, amongst many things, and as well as working in the sports sponsorship space for many, many years. So it was always good to catch up with him. I was lucky enough to meet him last year when he was down here in Melbourne. We had a few false starts in setting up this interview, so we finally locked it in. Recorded this in late last year. So here is my chat with JW Cannon. Very happy to welcome JW Cannon, Senior Project Lead for Sponsorship and Events at UPS. You would know him from Twitter if you are on Twitter. JW, welcome to the Sports Geek Podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here. Finally glad we were able to get this done.
Yes, and people who do follow Twitter, you're also known as the co-founder of SB Chat with Lou Imbriano and yourself, starting that many years ago. Do you want to sort of, rather than starting with your career, I want to dive in on the SB Chat. How did that come about between yourself and Lou?
Well, Lou and I have known each other for going back almost 2 decades from his days with the Patriots, and had lost connection over the years, and of all things reconnected through the wonder of Twitter, which, you know, as you're well aware, has really strong base of sports business professionals that are active in the space. And one thing we noticed at that time was that there were a number of people out there spewing off advice, talking about their experience in the industry, and frankly, just offering really, really bad advice and selling snake oil, to the point where we said, you know what, there's kind of this dearth or there's an information gap with the young people in the industry and the veterans, and there's not a really good forum for young people to kind of participate and learn from those who've been around the block. And frankly, they're getting bad advice from all these other people. And so we decided to start up a Twitter chat with the idea of including folks that are just starting out in their careers, who may still be in college, all the way to the vets, to have an open conversation about what's going on in the industry, career advice, et cetera. It started, the very first one was held in January of 2011, literally 2 days before my son was born and 5 days before I started at UPS. So I did the actual first one from the hospital room, waiting for my son to arrive.
Yeah, and the good thing about SP Chat, and I tune in on occasion because it's like Monday lunchtime in Australia, because you run it Sunday night in the US. It is a bit of appointment tweeting, so to speak. Tune in. This is when we do it. It's fast paced. You answer the questions. If you're not sure, you can participate by consuming and listening in, and then once you feel the flow, everyone can sort of get involved.
Yeah, it's a great forum to interact with other people, again, from all different levels, and share some thought leadership. But we also have a number of people who have told us they are active lurkers, so it's a great place just to consume information about what's going on in the industry, or industry advice, or anything else that you're looking to accomplish in the space. And
so your background in the sports business space, you've been on the brand side and on the sponsorship side previously. Before UPS, you were at ING, and then you're also at Octagon and work with brands like Bank of America, Home Depot, Auto Trader, those kind of things. What's it like? Because a lot of times I'm talking to the team execs or the leagues execs, people running digital or the technology on the team side. What's it like being on that brand side and looking at the world of sports? What are you always looking for from that angle?
Well, I'll be honest with you. It's like being the hunted as opposed to the hunter. We always seem to be rabbits.
Yep.
And everybody's trying to hunt you down. But it's a good position to be in. I would say that the biggest challenge for me as a brand is really cutting through the clutter and trying to find what the most valuable opportunities are for us. We're hit from so many angles on a regular basis. It's really, really hard to keep up with the volume. And at the same time, that's not our only job, is to review new opportunities. It's to leverage what we already have existing. And so the biggest challenge for me, I think, is really trying to find that balance of, all right, how do I maximize what I already have with what's on the horizon and what opportunities exist for us that we should be taking advantage of.
Yeah, I think that point there of acquisition is very important, but activation of once you've got that asset is super important, because the sponsorship executive can be it's the thrill of the chase, like you said. You are the hunted as a brand, but that's only half the journey, because once you've secured the sponsor, it's all about activating and making sure that the sponsor is best leveraging the assets they have, and that's on both sides, both from a team point of view, helping them facilitate it, but then also making sure the sponsor is actually getting as much as they can out of the activation that they're trying to do.
Sure. I mean, you've heard the old adage of it's like buying a car without putting in the gasoline. You still got to put the gasoline in it to make it go. And so activation is and leveraging the existing partnerships that we have is key to driving our business. And so
how has the sponsorship game changed over the years in your years in the business?
It sounds really cliche, but sponsorships are really increasingly, and I think they'll continue to be increasingly focused on the digital social experience for fans. As I think about sponsorships in general and where they need to move to, it's really about trying to develop and bring more content, has to be more engaging and relevant to our consumers and the consumers of the properties that we partner with. So people always say social and digital, but as we all know, those are mediums, and mediums require good content. So I think that's key for me. The industry continue to move forward. I mean, I think all you have to do is look at the fact that consumers are spending so much less time in front of their televisions and more time in front of their tablets and phones. I think I used this number earlier this year when I spoke at the Sports Fan Engagement Summit in Australia there, where I met you. Digital spending this year increased 18% last year, but the overall spend rate increased much less. So it's meaning digital is getting a much significant more portion of the spend overall from an advertising perspective. So all these marketers are reducing their advertising budgets in other areas to fund more digital marketing initiatives. And there's so many channels that are available to brands now in comparison to what was several years ago. So I think digital, and again, I think it's cliche to say digital is really what's the game, but it truly is a game changer from the standpoint for our business, in that it provides this level of intimacy, this level of personalization, measurability at the click of a button in real time that other things can't do. And that's something that's been critically missing from our industry.
Yeah, and that's the thing, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, teams didn't have these digital departments, this savviness, this content production that they're having now on the digital side. And so now it's a matter of how they weave in the sponsorship message, how do they do things that hit the mark, and also make sure they hit the mark with the sponsor's audience. It's one thing to slap a logo on a piece of content that goes out to all of your fans, but if you as UPS or you as Bank of America want to hit a certain demographic, you've got to be able to have that flexibility from a digital team point of view to make sure you're getting those results, because sponsorship is becoming far more results focused than just hey, this is what our brand did, this is what it reached, those kind of things. It's becoming more tracked and more lead focused and those kind of things from a sponsorship point of view.
Well, digital now it's not a passing fling, right? It's a thing. It's mainstream. And that means the mindset needs to be less about quote unquote digital marketing and more about marketing in a digital world where digital, frankly, is the default. That's a big change for people to kind of digest. So, and you're really seeing how it's influencing how brands approach their investments. And I don't think I've seen any campaign in recent years of any magnitude that hasn't included a significant digital component as part of it.
And do you think also the customer experience and the rise of experiential activations and really making sure that the customer is at the heart of it and digital is leveraging it, that's where the really smart brands and the smart sponsorship activation, especially around the stadium, because there's really still a lot of importance of activating at the stadium and making sure the fans that are actually there get to feel and see and touch your brand. But having these experiential type activations are where the lead, is the leading sort of edge of what's happening in sponsorship.
Well, it is. I think it's a very important part of it, but I think you can err too much on the side of too much experiential in a lot of ways. To me, the key is to finding a balance of getting something that is inherently physical that fans can participate in, and ones that will allow them to kind of generate some of the content for you almost automatically. Because experiential on a per person basis can be really, really expensive. And if it's not done right and it's not done with the right components that will allow you to amplify that experience, it can be very wasteful spending. And so, while I think experiential is a very important component, I think what's more important is getting the experiential part right to the point where people are spreading the word about it in the way that will provide you more value.
And the thing is that it also drives those secondary benefits for the team or the club, which is getting people to the game, cheeks in the seats, which is a phrase we like to use, but also it is important, that amplification piece, whether it's self-generated, user-generated content, the fans saying what an awesome time they're having, or your digital team will produce a piece of content that shows off what you've been doing, how a sponsor has made the game day experience cooler, that kind of thing. That's the key part of anything from a stadium activation you need to look at.
That's right. You have to be thinking about how it's going to be perceived and what people are going to say about it, and how they're going to share that experience, and how you're going to share that experience beyond that. Because if all you're doing is branding an area for someone to come participate in the stadium, there's not a lot of value to me personally as a sponsor. I mean, there's value to some people who activate in the space, but to me, it's not as valuable, because you're losing a very significant portion of that team's fan base, which does not attend the game on a regular basis.
And that's very much fitting the sponsorship, whether it's digital or stadium activation, with the needs of the sponsor. You're very clear in, saying what you're doing, and you want to be reaching fans who aren't in the stadium. There might be 100,000 in the stadium, but if there's 1 million fans following, you want to be reaching and touching those 1 million fans, and that's comes down to your sponsorship needs. And it's really important to match what you're trying to do with what the sponsor is, and not do the whole square peg round hole. But we've got this great stadium activation, please use it. No, we really want this digital piece. It's about get that matching right.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean that's what you're buying in a sponsorship. You're not buying, the 20 to 100,000 people that attend, most of whom are the same people over and over again, right? You're not buying that. You're buying the identification with that brand, which extends well beyond the in-stadium environment. So you have to be thinking about how you are talking to those fans beyond just the in-stadium environment.
So recently I had a chat with John McCauley, who used to be on the team side, and we discussed how many pitches he would be getting constantly from technology vendors trying to pitch into the team. Now, you've talked about being the hunted, and you would have seen a lot of sponsorship proposals and pitches come through your inbox and land on your desk. Is there any do's and don'ts? Is there something that you see if you open up a proposal and it has something, it's automatically, you don't get to the second page, it's automatically in the bin? And what are the things you look for that say, well, this person's going to get a call, this makes a lot of sense to me? What are some of the do's and don'ts for the sponsorship executives out there when you're pitching to a brand?
So you're looking for the rabbit to give away its secrets of how the hunter can find him?
I was seeing if I could get past you there, but damn smart rabbit. But so at least give us some of the tricks or some of the tips of some of the bad ones, because I'm sure that you've seen a lot of bad ones that you just go, they don't even, you don't get to the second page. But some of the things of the good and the bad.
Sure. We get hundreds of proposals a week, so I got a really broad base to kind of choose from. And if I didn't have a day job, I could probably create one just responding to inquiries. But in all seriousness, though, the key to success with selling partnerships is understanding what the buyer wants to accomplish and showcasing how what you as a property have that can help that sponsor reach those goals. I think research is a really key component in understanding this. And I always say that if you want to know what's keeping me up at night, for example, just read our earnings reports, right? Research what's going on with the company. And it's apparent within 30 seconds, the folks that have done their research and understand what we're trying to accomplish. And they may not get it right on the nose, but it's very apparent, at least the folks who have taken a little bit of a deeper level of an approach to try and understand what we're trying to accomplish. And while I always follow up on the proposals I personally receive, maybe not always right away, but the ones who show through their pitch that they have a mechanism for helping me meet my business goals are the ones that I look to learn more from.
Yeah, and so because it's not about you. From a sponsorship executive, it's not, hey, here's all the things that we've got, here's what you can do with your brand. It's really understanding, and one of our clients did a really good job in renewing one of their major sponsors, and it was all data-based. It was all how they knew their customer and why that they could deliver for them. And it wasn't traditional in here's the signage and here's what the jersey sponsorship's worth. Yes, that was part of the proposal, but the main crux of it was that they knew exactly. They knew a lot about their customer and they knew what they were trying to drive for. And it's the importance of data. I think over the past 10 years, and the fact that sports teams are now getting much savvier, the sort of the money ball, the data analytics that they're getting from both their own fan base and their social fans, it's exceptionally powerful in the right hands when you're going back to your sponsor.
Well, and I think at the end of the day, you want to try and combine that and harness that data that you have as a property and match that with the data that the sponsor has on their side and fuse those together. And to do that, it requires somebody looking beyond just a quick Google search of what UPS is doing in the sponsorship space. You have to kind of go deeper, read trade publications, look at blog posts that our company is posting, read our annual earnings reports or our quarterly earnings reports and those sorts of things. And you can start to pick up on trends. If you start to research all of those things, you can start to pick up on trends about what's important to us as a business, because at the end of the day, the sponsorship group at UPS is a microcosm of the broader organization. So our goals mirror the broader organization's goals. And that's what keeps me up at night is trying to further those goals. And you need to understand those when you're trying to sell us something.
So that's the team. So what about yourself looking at trends and the latest things happening in the marketing space or the sports marketing space? Is there things that you go, I'm looking what's happening over there and that's catching my eye, and that starts leading you to where you want to go? What are some of the marketing trends you see yourself and you see sponsorship overall sort of moving towards, sort of extending apart from you were saying before about digital and social? Is there anything else out there that you're sort of saying that's where the attention of the people are going? Because pretty much that's what you're chasing down.
Yeah, a big trend now is to talk to people on a one-to-one basis, to consumers and fans, whether that be through social or other messaging platforms, connecting with them and connecting that to an experience. I think that one-on-one interpersonal communication is really key to not just sponsorships, but to marketing overall. That's a trend that's going on. How do you talk to individual consumers and their individual needs? I think branded content, everybody wants it, and they want it to look authentic, but how do you have branded content without it looking like branded content? That's a big question that we're all kind of answering. And then technology centric, nowadays every business is a technology business. So, how does technology continue to influence what we do? I think we've talked about wearables. I think we're past the social era, but you're starting to see some of those social companies become more traditional technology companies. How does that lead our business forward? Those are the big things that I'm kind of keeping an eye on.
And that's the thing, you've got social companies like, right at the moment you've got not Snapchat that's moving into a hardware company that's effectively doing an activation for its own spectacles with these pop-up vending machines put up in random cities around the US, and people are starting to get access to this technology when previously that might have been taken up by a Coke or a Pepsi and it might have been done that way. So they've sort of taken what traditionally would be a sponsorship play and they're doing it just doing it with their own technology. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and whether it becomes something that goes viral with the scarcity that they're providing these spectacles out, and people wanting to be having part of them. And I think the other one from a one-to-one point of view is the rise of Messenger and where chatbots are going to fit in, and is it going to be smart enough, and can we have that one-on-one conversation with people, and is that something that that sponsors will want to be a part of, because people are answering messages far more frequently than taking over the SMS and that kind of thing. So I think those two things, the one-to-one, that's where the Messenger chatbots, whether it's WeChat or whether it's Facebook Messenger, I think that's something that's still evolving over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think one thing that marketers need to be careful of in that trend is looking at it as how how do I as a consumer want to be marketed to. It's not really about how do I want to be marketed to, because I don't think any consumer goes out there and actively says, I want to see ads thrown my way that are more relevant to me. It's all about the experience and how you make the experience more relevant to them. So I think you have to kind of take that approach, almost flip it on its end. And naturally, how you market to them comes more naturally out of that. But I think you have to put yourselves in the fans' shoes first before thinking about how marketing to them. And I think a lot of times marketers sometimes fall in the trap of doing the exact reverse.
Yeah, they see the new technology. I mean, I think over the last sort of 12, 18 months, we've sort of had that awkward baby giraffe walking experience with beacons and notifications where it's, hey, look, this is a great tool. We can buzz people as soon as they walk past. And, yeah, the evil marketer that sits on your shoulder says, yes, we're going to buzz them every time they walk past, when really what you should be doing is, what can we notify them with that would add value to them, not market to them, what would add value. And it might be a special, special video that's unlocked because you're in a certain part of the stadium or something along those lines. I think we have to look past the bells and whistles of the new technology and then look at it like completely what you just said, from the fans' point of view, rather than, the evil marketer on our shoulder, which we all have, because we can just do the straight line and go straight there, but it's not going to get the results we want.
Very true.
So we did start the chat with SB, with talking about SB Chat, and Twitter at the moment seems to be waxing and waning with all the reports, whether it gets sold, whether it doesn't get sold. I recently spoke to Ian Padgham, who's a big star on Vine, and then a week later they've shut down Vine. Do you have a take on where do you think Twitter may end up? Where would it be in 12 months or maybe 2 years' time?
I'm still a big believer in Twitter as a growth platform as is. I still think I think they've made some very wise investments into live broadcasts, which I think will really differentiate it from some of the other providers and being able to own that content and distribute it through their channels. But there still is no platform out there that has a real-time finger on the pulse of everything that is going on in the community or in the world, frankly. At any given time than Twitter does. With all the algorithms that Facebook and Google Plus and the like all have in place, it tends to water down the real-time element. And I think Twitter is still the one that has that real-time element that everybody can participate in that nobody else can replicate right now. So I'm still a big believer in the platform.
I think their shift to media, it's still to be played out. I mean, with their NFL coverage and picking up events, and even the slight tweak of making a big decision about Vine, renaming themselves to be a media platform, not a social network in iTunes. I think they're slowly making that pivot. They're still very much the live pulse. And I think doing things like just recently doing things around the abuse problem that is a big problem for a lot of people. I think that's a big win. But it's just a matter of, for mine, like if they've got to start getting, and it's always been a problem, the first time experience. Like you and I have been on Twitter for 7-8 years, I don't know, whatever it is now. So we've got that history of seeing it evolve, seeing some of the pieces, retweets and how they came about, and hashtags and Twitter chats and how they worked, whereas a lot of people still are just sort of consuming it, doing a lot of lurking and not quite sure how to have that interaction. And I think once you do lock in with a couple of people and you know them and you have conversations and you follow them, and like that's when Twitter is at its best. And I think there's got to be some secret sauce, or someone's got to have something to say, this is how you can go about using it. Yes, you can dive in to watch an NFL game, but yeah, if they can get that conversation going again, and having that banter backwards and forwards, I think that's the key to success. And I think the attraction that Twitter had, trying to follow the celebrities and having everyone follow the celebrities, I think, to me, the success and the value of Twitter is the connections you make with people. Some of my best friends now are ones that I met on Twitter, and same with a lot of people that I know in the US and the UK. It was all via Twitter, and I think if more people have that kind of experience, they would be better. They'll be far better off.
Well, without a doubt. I mean, you and I would have never met without a tool like Twitter in place. So I agree 100% with you. I think Twitter, like a lot of companies that have gone public before it, have to a certain degree fallen prey to how Wall Street works, right? Which is always demanding this constant growth. Whereas Twitter's experienced, modest declines or modest growth more recently. That doesn't sit well with Wall Street and people who are trying to make money. They're always trying to look at what's the next big thing for you. And I almost think, to a certain degree, Twitter is okay just where it is. What if X million people are that actively engage using the platform is okay? If you have modest growth beyond that, I personally think that that's okay. But as a stockholder, I might think very, very differently. So I think that they have an interesting dilemma over how to really please that hardcore base that you're talking about, the folks like you and I who have been involved for a very, very long time, and balance that with growth in other areas or within the existing platform to please stockholders. I'm glad I'm not making the decision.
Yeah, but that's the thing that's, it does frustrate me at times when there's, great tools that have hang off Twitter that, like I use a tool called Nuzzle that effectively sends me an email of all the best news that all of my Twitter followers have tweeted. If it gets tweeted multiple times, then it bubbles up, and it's right on the money. I read nearly every article that comes from it. So there's so much of that rich data there for Twitter to use. That's where I think the value is, and I still think there's a massive opportunity to actually reach out and connect with people on that one-to-one level. Like you were saying before, that's the opportunity. Early on, it's always been the opportunity. There's a lot of work through the thumbs to connect with people, whether it's one-to-one and you want to be you want to be in the sports business, or if you want to have a team that wants to get a better, deeper connection with your fans. There's nothing easier than favoriting all of those tweets and replying to fans and letting them know that they're heard. That's something that I was teaching teams back in 2010, 2011 to say, this is how you build an audience, this is how you build engagement. That hasn't gone away. It's just that you put in that effort, you will get that reward on a platform like Twitter.
No, you're absolutely right.
And so going back to the sports business, and part of SB Chat is you do have a lot of young people, that are hustling, that are either in college or starting out with their first team, whether it be an intern role or working in a minor league. What do you have as when people ask you what's the best advice to break into a very hard industry to break into that sports business is?
I think the biggest thing, there are two big things that I look for in people, and these are the things that I encourage people to kind of refine as skills. Number one is resourcefulness. Number one, your ability, refine your ability to solve problems independently. When you work in an environment like sports, particularly if you work in the team environment, a lot of times you're going to be left out on an island to kind of make independent decisions on your own or with very little input. And so the more that you can show that you have the ability to kind of rationalize your decision making, make effective decisions, actually effectively activate against those decisions, that is a very, very valuable trait to learn at a young age. And some people can do it and some people can't. The other thing that I always tell people to think about is just flexibility. And that comes in many different ways. Flexibility from your ability to stretch beyond your existing skill set and to try something new, and frankly, your willingness to do that.
Yep.
And I think that also extends to your flexibility and willingness to do the uncomfortable. I moved down to Atlanta 18 years ago, not knowing a soul, and thankfully I've been able to kind of stay down here and build a home base here and raise a family. I'm not so lucky, or I'm lucky in that sense. Other people aren't so lucky in the standpoint that they have to move around quite a bit. And I think in the beginning, you have to have that kind of flexibility to go where the opportunities are, because that's where you're going to continue to grow your skill set. That's where you're going to build your network. And that's where you're going to show that you're willing to do things that other people can't. So I think you have to really start out in this industry with the mindset that I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And that means if I have to move away from mom and dad and move away from the pets, girlfriend for a while to refine my skill and refine my trade, then I'm going to do it. Over time, you'll be able to start to make the decisions for yourself, but that flexibility starting off is key.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is very much making sure that you mentioned there your network as you're going from place to place, like that becomes so powerful, every single year. So every time you're meeting someone, whether it be at a conference, at a meetup, online, there's always ways to make positive connections, and you never know when they'll pay off down the track.
You're absolutely right.
So we're going to close with the closing five. Do you remember what the first sports event you ever attended was?
The very first sports event that I attended, I don't remember what year it was, but my family's had season tickets to the Washington Redskins for over 80 years, and it was a game during one of their early Super Bowl runs, 82 or 83, that I was able to go with my grandparents and kind of experience the in-stadium environment for the first time. And while the experience has changed a lot over the years with that particular team, I will never forget kind of the smell of the air and the feel of the crowd and seeing the stand shake. I mean, it made me want to come back for more, and I did many times.
And you would have been to many fields and many different stadiums. Do you have a favorite food memory from a sports event?
A favorite food memory, I don't have a favorite memory per se. Yep. But there is not a single sports event that I go to that I don't get a chili dog and a beer. So how about we start with that?
You can't go wrong with a chili dog and a beer. And what's the first app you open in the morning?
Feedly, actually. Contrary to popular belief, it might be Twitter. Feedly is an RSS reader. I have over 1,200 different feeds that I kind of filter in, that I look through to read my news, to read what's going on in Twitter, to read on what's going on with a number of different industries that I leverage for content. That's the first app that I open, and the last one I open at the end of the day too. Yep.
RSS, that's very old school of you to be pulling in feeds from everywhere. I think it is a bit of a lost art. I was using Yahoo Pipes for a long time to pull in a whole bunch of different feeds and mash them all up into one giant feed, but unfortunately it was stopped. But I love that personal curation. I think it's one of the. It's if you can build up your own personal curation system, and it's different for everybody, it's a really great way to stay informed.
Without a doubt, and there are a number of aggregators out there that allow you to kind of do the same thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be based on RSS technology. So I am a bit of a dinosaur in that regard, but until somebody cuts off the spigot, I'm going to continue to use it.
Yep. Is there someone that you would nominate, as you're pretty well connected in the Twitter space? Are there people that the Sports Geek Podcast listeners should follow, and why?
I think Jessica Smith with Under Armour. If you haven't met her yet on Twitter or in the social sphere, she's Warjess Eagle.
Yep.
She is a fantastic brand side marketer, very, very smart at what she does, really understands the space well and how it applies to not only her company, but to kind of the broader industry, offers up great content and best practices for how to position your brand in the sports business and social space. And she does it regularly. So I think consistency is also key. So she's one that I would kind of put up there as my MVP. Yeah,
definitely. Just does a terrific job. Now, from a social media platform point of view, which social media platform is your MVP?
I still think Twitter is, and Not just because I'm involved with it, but I do think real time is such an important part of how sports play a role in our lives, and frankly, how all of current events play a role in our lives. And there is still no platform that replaces the real time nature of Twitter, that can replace the reaction that people have when President Trump is elected, when the Cubs win the World Series, when the Patriots win the Super Bowl, or what have you.
Yep.
And being able to share that experience in near real time with a lot of people, there's nothing that can replace that but Twitter.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Where can people find you? What's the best way to connect with you?
You can, of course, find me on LinkedIn, JW Cannon. I'm very easy to find. Also very active on Twitter, as you guys already know. I am at Cannon JW, CANNON JW, and you can also find me on Instagram in the same place.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I hope to be in your neck of the woods down in Atlanta sometime in the near future.
All right. See you, Sean.
Sign up for Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/sign up now.
Thanks again to JW Cannon. Please send him a tweet. He's very active on the Twitter, Cannon JW. If you're not following JW on Twitter, then you're probably, like I said before, you're not doing Twitter right. And please jump in on SB Chat, which is Sunday night in the US, around Monday lunchtime for those of you who are in Australia. If you can't tune in at that time, it's always good to just jump on the SB Chat hashtag and check out some of the stuff that's being discussed. Much like podcasting, I'm sure there's a stack of people who lurk and watch. I'm one of them because I'm not always available to jump in. But if you want to learn a bit more and make some connections with people, then please do so by checking out SB Chat. So, question of the podcast, because this is the first podcast for 2017, doesn't mean you might be listening to this in 2018. Who knows? But what do you want from me? What do you want more of from me in what I produce online? What do you want in the way of the podcast? If you want different types of guests, please nominate guests that you think I should have a chat to. I'm happy to take on any suggestions from the community. What type of content? I'm actually looking, as I sort of said earlier, to get a regular schedule around the podcast. I'm also looking to ramp up the content produced, putting a bit more focus into platforms like Instagram, Sports Geek HQ, if you're not following there, or my account, Sean Callanan. Also doing a bit more content on Facebook, again across 2 channels. My Facebook, which is more of a mix of business and entrepreneurial life, the mix between what I'm doing at Sports Geek and what I'm doing at Chunky and what I'm reading. So it's a little bit of what I do on my Twitter, but just trying a few different things on Facebook, but then and obviously the Sports Geek Facebook page where I share a lot of different stuff. So that's just from a content point of view, but is there anything else you want from me? Do you need help with your digital strategy? Do you need some workshops to help your team realign what they're trying to do? Do you need an in-season review or an out-of-season review to sort of take a step back, a fresh set of eyes and ears to look over everything and listen to what you're trying to do? Or the other one is are you happy? Are you in the sports business Slack? If you haven't joined up, you can join up by going to sportsgeekhq.com and jump into the sports biz Slack. There's over 700 people in there now. It was one of my big wins, I think, for 2016 to see that community develop. I'm really taking on board your suggestions. So the many means possible, you can send me an email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com. You can message me in Slack. You can send me a tweet. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Any or all of those above. So I'd love your ideas on content-wise. How am I going? What am I doing? Is it working? Does it need a tweak? Taking on board that, and then anything else you think makes sense, and I can deliver you guys, and you as listeners or as a sports business community. Please just let me know. And then lastly, if you need my help, if you need some consulting or pick my brain a little bit around a problem, whether it be monetizing your digital, getting your content mix right, tackling new platforms. That's what I do from a day-to-day point of view when I'm not podcasting. So that's that keeps the lights on at the Sports Geek HQ office. So please reach out. Until next episode, which will come out next week at the same time. I'm just not defining what that time is right now because I haven't decided when I'm recording this. So the planning's getting there, it's just not quite there. My name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.
Like the Sports Geek Podcast? Find us on Facebook.com/SportsGeek.
Check out which teams work with Sports Geek at sportsgeekhq.com/clients.
Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes. Thanks for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.